word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about X-Men, the Onslaught Revelation by Cy Spurrier and Bob Quinn. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you how Onslaught managed to infiltrate the resurrection protocols on Krakoa, and more importantly, exactly how Legion and Nightcrawler plan to not only stop Onslaught, but also create the Quotey Fingers mutant religion. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you enjoy the video, I humbly ask that you slap that like button and share this video all over the internet with all your friends, because it really helps the channel out. That said, let's talk about X-Men, the Onslaught Revelation, #1. All right, so getting into this, the main thing, and you know, this comic is full of so much flowery dialogue and so much exposition. There's so much in the way of 20, 40, 50, 60, and even some $80 and $100 words. So I'm gonna spare you all of the rigmarole, the mumbo jumbo. I'm just gonna go ahead and get right to it. What you really need to know is, let's answer the first question. How did Onslaught infiltrate the island? How did he manage to sneak his way into the resurrection protocols? And the answer to the question is incredibly simple. He did it through the character Lost. Lost, in the previous issue of Way of X #5, basically told us that when Fabian Cortez had killed her parents, she was taken in by some organization. She never said who or what the organization was. All she says is that they, Quotey Fingers, did things to her. Well, that organization, as it turns out, was Orcus, yet again, who we kind of saw, Kurt and the rest of the gang bump into in the very beginning of Way of X. Well, as it turns out, this was by design. They found Lost, basically experimented on her, tortured her, and took a crumb of what was essentially the essence of Onslaught and infected her mind with it, basically burying it down in her subconscious. And what Onslaught did from there is bury himself even further within Lost hatred for Fabian Cortez, because that was one of those places that apparently psychics don't tend to look around in, is the area where your hatred truly resides. Piggybacking in Lost's subconsciousness, hiding in the depths of her psyche, it was the moment that she went through the crucible and was killed by Magneto and was then resurrected with full usage of her power. That was the moment that Onslaught truly began infecting the resurrection protocols. Now, it does get a little weird because technically, he was already kind of preying on the mind of Charles Xavier, as well as kind of acting as a boogeyman to some of the other mutants on Krakoa even before Lost arrived on the island, but it wasn't really truly until she died after facing the crucible and being resurrected that was when he actually got into everybody's subconsciousnesses. This becomes even more evident when you recognize back in Way of X #1 that Pixie is not resurrected until after Lost was resurrected first. Hence, when she started seeing the actual manifestation of the Patchwork Man, aka Onslaught. Now, I will go ahead and say real quick, if you're wondering how is Fabian Cortez here, when we saw him in Way of X #5, he was left in a coma, and Charles Xavier said that it was not worth it to resurrect him, that maybe he should just stay dead. How is he walking around with Kurt and Legion and all this? Well, the reason why is because he is still technically in the coma, but Legion plucked his psyche from his comatose body and brought him to the astral plane. It's likely here where Fabian Cortez was able to give Kurt the spark, because that was kind of the big to-do about Way of X #5 in the finale. It was that Kurt had finally learned about the spark, the future way of life that he was going to use as the basis for his, Quotey Fingers mutant religion. Fabian Cortez wasn't around to tell him that because he was left in a comatose state and he was not going to be resurrected. Therefore, he couldn't tell Kurt anything anything when Kurt was brought back, so the spark was thought to just be lost to memory. But as we did see in Way of X number 5, we saw that apparently that was not the case, because we saw readings about the spark that date after the moment of Fabian Cortez's being comatose. So clearly at some point between Way of X number 5 and X-Men The Onslaught Revelation number 1, somewhere in there, in the process of Legion plucking Fabian Cortez's psyche from his comatose body, somewhere in there, the spark was revealed to Nightcrawler. I'm not going to retread a lot of this because a lot of this was actually brought up in Way of X number 5, the redemption of Fabian Cortez. It's all kind of regurgitated here in this issue, and maybe not for bad reasons, but it does kind of seem like this comic would not be half as long if it didn't focus on yet again redeeming Fabian Cortez. Whereas in Way of X number 5, it was a little more succinct. We learned that Fabian realized that he was a self-loathing mutant, that he hated himself, and that he never truly cared about himself, and that he always just kind of sabotaged himself by being as hateful and as spiteful as humanly possible. This is delved into even further in regards to figuring out why Lost truly hates him, and ultimately why he hates himself. And it's because he was in fact born with a silver spoon in his mouth and everything came easy to him, and when he became a mutant, his powers basically gave him a doorway into another world. Unfortunately, however, that world that he gained access to, he wasn't going to be the major player, the focus of everything, the center of attention as he is in the human world when he was a kid. He ultimately became a second fiddle because his powers didn't allow him to be a boss like Magneto. His powers only allowed him to help prop up other individuals, and that is why he's always kind of hitched himself to other people's wagons, that he always tried to prop up other individuals and try and use their successes to appear as though they're his own. This is all just basically a way of saying that he always wanted to be the guy, the number one guy, the center of attention, but he never could, and this is why he latched onto Magneto all those years ago. And yes, he did in fact not directly kill Lost's parents, but his acolytes did when he was raising all kinds of havoc trying to make a name for himself. All in all, because of the fact that Lost now knows this information about Fabian and has learned why Fabian truly hates himself and why he is so, well, for all intents and purposes, pathetic, Lost doesn't necessarily forgive Fabian Cortez, but she reveals that she no longer hates him, at least not in this moment, and letting go of her hatred is what kind of spells the beginning of the end for Onslaught's plan. Well, you're probably asking yourself, what was Onslaught's plan in the first place? Well, his plan was to basically infect the minds and hearts of all of Krakoa's resurrected mutants. Having himself entrenched in the resurrection protocols, any mutant that has ever died and been brought back, he has access to their mind and he can influence them. And we learned in Way of X number 5 that he infected them with the idea of a crucible. Now, we didn't initially know exactly what this was, but I kind of posited that it was probably some big party where everyone's going to ultimately kill each other. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's basically a dance party where at the end, and maybe even some moments before that, everyone is trying to kill each other. And what makes matters worse is that not only has Onslaught infected the resurrection protocols, but he has also infected not just Magneto's mind, but Charles Xavier's as well. And what he's doing is he's using Magneto to protect Charles Xavier from any interference, while Charles Xavier deletes every single backup of every mutant in Cerebro. Now, why is this important? It's very important because without the backups, any mutant who dies can't be brought back. You could create a body for that person, and you could ultimately create an egg for that person and birth that body, but there would be no essence, no mind put back in there. Now, this is a major issue and a huge problem for Krakoa's mutants. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why don't the mutants just stop doing what they're doing? Can they just, just not kill each other? No, they can't. Onslaught has them under control, and they have no knowledge that the backups have been deleted by Charles Xavier. They have no clue what is going on. They have no control over themselves. They are literally being puppeteered by Onslaught in mass. So yeah, they couldn't stop if they wanted to. And how exactly are they going to tackle this? Well, I'm glad you asked. They are going to tackle this by way of creating the mutant religion that Nightcrawler has been talking about since House of X. Only it's not really a mutant religion. It's actually more of a way of life. It's basically a way of living and expressing who you are and being yourself. It's not about creating new gods for mutants to worship. It's not about throwing away the old gods that mutants worshipped before. No, it's about just embracing your life, being able to take risk, being able to dare to be different, being able to just do what you want to do and live in the light and live in the moment. And that is what this is all about. It's all about just being, just existing, about loving each other, about being a people. And one of the things I loved about this is that there's a point where Kurt even says that you can't truly be a people without first being people. In the end, the message is clear. It's a whole lot of do unto others and live your life to the fullest and do no harm to others. It's the basic stock standard stuff. Now, once again, how does this defeat Onslaught? Well, it's not so much this that defeats Onslaught, so much as it is the fact that Legion, in the time all this has been going on, he has created a temple of sorts. He's created this temple that basically exists in the astral plane and is, for all intents and purposes, a way for other mutants to congregate with one another, without necessarily being in, the physical realm. It's also a lot more personal and is very reminiscent of what Legion did for the characters Loa and Mercury in Way of X #3, but just on a much grander and much bigger scale. And they're going to use this connection, connecting the mutants who they have in their employ right now, chief among them being Fabian Cortez. They also have Lost. Not only do they have Lost, but of course, the Zorn brothers are there as well, as they have been for pretty much all of this. We also know that Soraya is there as well, Gorgon is there, and so too is Stacy X. And they've also made sure to bring in other mutants like Pixie. Pixie is probably one of the more important mutants that they made sure to get involved in this, because her spirit dagger basically overrides Onslaught's mind control. This is how they're able to get some of the other mutants out from under Onslaught's thrall, including Magneto, even if that was only for a little while. And they've also made sure to bring in Dazzler, Dr. Nemesis, DJ, Blink, among others. And together they're able to combine their powers and abilities to get the attention of everyone. They're able to get everyone away from this crucible dance party where everyone in the end is going to die. They're able to move everybody out of that location and get them into the astral plane, where in a weird enough way, Dust is able to connect everybody using her ability to control grains of sand. And what she's doing is using the sand to connect all of the different individuals and basically lash back at Onslaught, who has now taken over his original hosts, Charles Xavier and Magneto, using them to continue the plan of destroying mutant kind. And ultimately, as I said earlier, this new way of life that Kurt has created is going to be what is going to defeat Onslaught, but it's almost more in line with something you'd probably see if you're familiar with the Persona games. It's not so much this new life that is going to change the world and defeat Onslaught, it's actually embracing who you really are. Not just the good stuff, not just the things that you think are the positive things about you, but also embracing the negative things about you as well, because that is what Onslaught feeds on. That's what he thrives on. He thrives on discord and dissent, anger and misery. And what better misery than someone who doesn't accept the negative things about themselves? That is pretty much the way to get rid of him. And much like you would see in a Persona game like Persona 4 and even Persona 5, basically all the mutants accept their darker selves, the dark secrets about themselves, the things that are not as desirable, and that is what whittles Onslaught down to being nothing. And in the end of it all, they're actually able to take this temple, this new altar that they're using, this astral plane where everyone can come together. They're using it for the greater good of Krakoa. They're using it as a training ground. They're using it as a place for people to express their trauma to one another, to teach others about the spark, this new way of life. They're able to use it to help train their abilities and make friends and just do all kinds of awesome stuff. There's even a joke about the only thing that has that's missing is a basketball court, and that will probably exist at some point there too. The astral plane is pretty much infinite territory, and they can literally do in there whatever they want and create whatever they want. And this kind of makes Legion probably the most invaluable member of the entire community of Krakoa at this point, whether Charles or Magneto want him to be or not. What's even more so though is that now that they've created this new realm, this new safe space for mutant kind, how do you protect it? Well, the good news is we know exactly how. They are going to create a new team called the Legionaries. Now, originally I thought maybe the Legionnaires probably would have been better, but I think they can't do that because that's more of a DC property, based off of I think it was spun off of the Legion of Superheroes, but the Legionaries works just as well. And this is a team that I wasn't expecting every member that they're putting on here. And this is a team for the most part where I expected just about every member that's going to be a part of this team to be a part of this team, but there's actually a couple of characters I didn't expect. This team is going to consist of, as we know it, Nightcrawler, duh, obviously. It'll also have Pixie, Dr. Nemesis, Forget-Me-Not, who some of you may recognize as another Cy Spurrier creation, but the two characters I was not expecting to see in this lineup are Blindfold and Juggernaut. Now, for obvious reasons, Juggernaut, let's address that one first because he's the easiest. Juggernaut's a character who Charles has largely said is unwelcome on Krakoa, so I don't know how this is gonna play out. He hasn't been very inviting to the idea of Juggernaut being on Krakoa in any way, shape, form, or fashion, even though Juggernaut has been trying to help other mutants get to the island and he's turned over a new leaf. Blindfold is another interesting one because she is a precognitive mutant, and we all know the rule about precognitive mutants on the island. All in all, I love what Cy Spurrier did here. I did not really enjoy the going back and rehashing some of the stuff from Wave X #5, though I understand exactly why they did it. They had more time to kind of express and expound upon some of those things. It did kind of, in the end, feel like this whole Persona 4, Persona 5 type of shenanigans, where it's just like, hey, I'm just going to embrace you. You or me, I'm thou, thou or I, and all this other stuff. It's crazy, but I mean, I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. It's whatever. But I do enjoy the idea of this new team. I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out. I just think it's very interesting that of all the characters on this team, Juggernaut is on. It's like, I guess you got to have a heavy, but I mean, still, this is a very interesting heavy to have, and who knows, maybe this will work out. I'm also curious to see how much of a role Legion plays in this. I'm pretty sure he will play a role in this. It would be weird if he didn't. And also thought it was very interesting that they brought in I don't want to say throwaway character, but just a character as underutilized as Forget-Me-Not. But who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet and with all your friends so they'll know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the defeat of Onslaught and the birth of the new mutant way of life. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about X-Men, the Onslaught Revelation #1. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.